Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the greatest heartbreak isn't losing someone, it's realizing you were the reason they stopped trying. Watch this till the very end. You'll understand the moment regret truly begins. Don't scroll. This one will hit differently. Comment where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever learned a lesson too late. You see, one of the most fascinating yet heartbreaking things about human relationships is how often we fail to recognize the value of something until silence replaces presence. In the beginning, she doesn't notice it. The way his texts start slowing down, the way his energy subtly shifts, or the way his tone becomes calmer, more detached. She tells herself he's just busy, distracted, maybe even losing interest. But what she doesn't realize is that this is not indifference. It's awakening. He's beginning to understand his worth, to redirect his emotional energy back to himself, and to stop offering love to someone who only half receives it. For so long, she thought his consistency meant predictability. The way he always showed up became something she stopped noticing. The good morning texts, the check-ins, the quiet gestures, they blended into the background of her daily routine. Familiarity has a strange way of numbing appreciation. When someone is always there, our minds start to normalize their presence, and we begin to assume they always will be. But when that steady presence fades, it's not the noise that gets her attention, it's the silence. That silence becomes deafening. It echoes in the spaces where he once fit perfectly, and for the first time she feels the weight of what she took for granted. Psychologically, this is the moment when cognitive dissonance begins to form. She's trying to reconcile the version of herself who thought she was in control with the new reality of his absence. It's uncomfortable, because she never imagined he would be the one to pull away first. She thought she could choose when the story ended. But the truth is, men who love deeply often leave silently. They don't announce their exit. They just stop explaining themselves. And when he stops explaining, she starts questioning. Not him, but herself. This is where regret begins. She replays memories, small conversations, the times she brushed off his efforts or made jokes that cut deeper than she realized. She remembers moments when he tried to communicate his needs, but she dismissed them as insecurity. Now, she hears his silence louder than his voice ever was. She starts scrolling through old photos, rereading old texts, not because she wants to go back, but because she's trying to understand when she lost him. That's the emotional trap of regret. It doesn't hit all at once. It builds quietly, one realization at a time. There's also a deeper layer to this. Emotionally mature men rarely retaliate or seek revenge. They detach. And that detachment is powerful because it's not emotional withdrawal out of anger. It's self-protection out of wisdom. When he chooses peace over explanation, she finally sees the man she overlooked. The man who once waited on her attention now walks with his own calm confidence. The same traits she found ordinary suddenly appear extraordinary when viewed through the lens of loss. That's the irony of regret. Clarity always arrives after the damage is done. And here's what's truly profound. When she starts missing him, it's not always him she misses. It's the version of herself she was when he loved her. The way he made her feel valued, admired, and secure. His presence gave her emotional grounding, and without realizing it, she built parts of her self-worth around his affection. When that disappears, she feels the void. Not because she can't live without him, but because she misses who she was when she was with him. That's the psychological truth behind many regrets. It's not just about losing someone. It's about losing a reflection of oneself that existed only in their love. The silence becomes a mirror. Every unanswered call, every message left unseen, every moment of stillness becomes a lesson. It's in this space that she begins to understand something she never learned before. That love is not owed, it's earned. That effort is not infinite. An emotional investment has limits. He loved her until it stopped making sense to keep trying. And the day he stopped trying wasn't out of anger, it was out of self-respect. In that realization, a shift occurs. She begins to feel what he once felt, the confusion, the ache, the yearning for something that no longer reciprocates. But unlike him, she doesn't know how to rebuild, because when a man pulls away after giving his all, he usually rises stronger. He finds purpose again, refocuses his energy, rebuilds his identity. But when she begins to regret, her journey is different. Regret forces reflection, and reflection forces humility. That's when the lessons begin, slowly, painfully, but permanently. So the next time she wonders why he doesn't come back, she needs to understand that the version of him she regrets losing no longer exists. He evolved through the pain she caused. His silence became his transformation, and perhaps that's what hurts the most. Not that he's gone, but that he no longer needs her. Sometimes it takes losing someone's presence to finally feel their worth. But by then, it's too late to go back, because silence, once earned, becomes sacred. And once a man finds peace in his absence, he rarely returns to the chaos that made him silent in the first place. The truth is simple. Regret always arrives after respect leaves. When she steps away from the relationship, at first, everything feels liberating. She tells herself she's moving on, that she's ready for a new chapter, that maybe she deserves someone different. But what she doesn't realize is that her definition of different is still rooted in comparison, a subconscious measuring of every man who comes after him. It's subtle at first. The way the new guy texts feels less thoughtful. His words don't carry the same warmth. His silence feels colder, heavier. And slowly, she begins to notice what she had, not because she's looking back, but because she can't find it again. This is where the comparison effect quietly begins to take hold, a psychological phenomenon where the mind begins to contrast the past with the present, not out of choice, but out of emotional memory. You see, when a man has loved a woman with depth, sincerity, and intention, he imprints something powerful on her psyche, emotional safety. That sense of being truly understood, cared for, and prioritized is not easy to replace. And when she steps into new dynamics, she unconsciously starts scanning for those same qualities. But most of the time, she doesn't find them, because she's looking for the same soul in a different body. At first, she tries to deny it. She tells herself that her ex wasn't perfect, that he had flaws, that this new person has potential. But potential doesn't recreate emotional connection. Attention doesn't equal understanding, and charm doesn't equal depth. The men who come after him may bring excitement, but they don't bring grounding. They make her laugh, but they don't make her feel safe. They speak beautifully, but their words don't carry weight. That's when she begins to remember, not the big gestures or the special occasions, but the small, consistent ways he showed up. How he noticed when she was quiet. How he could tell when she was overthinking. How he understood her moods without needing explanations. That's the part of love that stays, the emotional intelligence behind the connection. And when she no longer finds that, regret starts to build like a slow storm. It's not immediate. It's gradual. Every small disappointment in someone new becomes a reminder of what she lost in someone old. And the irony is, she doesn't want him back because of who he was. She wants him back because of how he made her feel. That's the emotional trap of comparison. It's not about the person, it's about the emotional experience that person created. Psychologically, this is a powerful thing. When a woman loses a man who genuinely cared, her brain goes through a kind of emotional withdrawal. She misses the dopamine rush of being seen and the oxytocin comfort of emotional safety. The new relationships don't stimulate the same emotional chemistry because her nervous system has already been conditioned by the calmness he once gave her. It's not excitement she misses, it's peace. And peace is one of the rarest emotions to replicate once lost. Over time, she starts revisiting old conversations in her mind. She starts asking herself questions she never asked before. Did I make him feel unappreciated? Was he really asking for too much, or was I just unwilling to give enough? These reflections are not just emotional, they're existential, because at the core of female psychology lies an important truth. Women are deeply relational beings. When a relationship ends, they don't just lose a person, they lose an emotional identity they built within that relationship. And when that identity is gone, the mind naturally begins to search for it again, often by comparing. And what's interesting is that this stage of regret doesn't come from loneliness. It comes from realization. It's that quiet acknowledgement that maybe she had something valuable, something emotionally mature, but she was too distracted by trivial flaws to notice its worth. Maybe she thought she could find better, only to realize better doesn't always mean more exciting. Sometimes it means more stable, more understanding, more patient. But by the time she sees this, he's already transformed. He's not the same man waiting to be noticed. He's the man who learned to value himself enough to stop waiting. And that contrast is painful because while she's busy comparing, he's busy evolving. He's becoming the best version of himself, not for her validation, but for his own peace. She watches from a distance, maybe through social media, maybe through mutual friends, and sees the glow up, the quiet confidence, the happiness that no longer includes her. That's when regret deepens, because she realizes that he didn't just move on, he leveled up. And the man she once took for granted became the man she now measures others against. There's a saying, you don't lose people, you lose the versions of them that loved you. And that's exactly what she feels. The version of him that once gave her everything no longer exists. She can't go back to him because time has changed him. And her too. But the cruel irony is that while he has moved forward with growth, she's left standing still with reflection. That's what comparison does. It traps the mind between what was and what could have been, making peace feel impossible. The lesson here is simple but profound. When someone loves you with genuine care and effort, recognize it. Because when that love leaves, what remains isn't just absence, it's contrast. And contrast has a way of teaching lessons that comfort never could. Every person she meets after him becomes a reminder, not of who he was, but of how she failed to value the version of herself she was when he loved her. So when she finally admits that no one measures up, it's not because he was perfect. It's because he was present. And in a world full of distractions and half-hearted affection, presence is priceless. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the person we once overlooked becomes the standard we can never replace. There comes a point in every story where emotion collides with pride. That moment when the heart wants to reach out, but the ego says, don't. For many women, this is the most difficult phase of regret. It's not that she doesn't want to make things right. It's that she can't bring herself to face the vulnerability of doing so. The same pride that once made her feel powerful now becomes her prison. She replays the moments she could have said, I'm sorry, the time she could have shown appreciation, but she chose silence instead. And now, when she finally wants to speak, that silence has become too loud to break. You see, pride and emotion are two forces that rarely coexist peacefully. Pride is rooted in self-preservation, the instinct to protect one's image, to avoid looking weak. Emotion, on the other hand, is raw truth. It doesn't care about appearances. It only wants release. When regret sets in, these two sides start to battle inside her. Her pride tells her that he's moved on, that reaching out would only make things worse. But her heart keeps whispering his name in quiet moments, in the songs she hears, the streets they walked, the scent of a memory she thought she'd forgotten. She's torn between wanting to heal and wanting to save face. Psychologically, this is a form of emotional dissonance, the tension that occurs when one's feelings and one's actions no longer align. It creates restlessness. She scrolls past his profile pretending not to care, but her heartbeat says otherwise. She talks to friends about how she's fine, yet deep down, she's wrestling with an unspoken truth. She still cares. But by now, he's different. His tone, his energy, his focus, they've all shifted. He's no longer waiting for her response. He's no longer the man who would have dropped everything to answer her call. He's learned that peace is more valuable than persuasion. And that realization hurts more than anything. At this point, she begins to experience what psychologists call the mirror effect. When someone else's growth reflects back one's own stagnation, watching him thrive without her becomes an emotional mirror. Every picture of him smiling, every sign of his progress, feels like a reminder of what she could have been part of. And yet, she can't bring herself to admit it. Her pride won't allow her to acknowledge that she underestimated him. That she once saw his patience as weakness, his kindness as passivity, and his loyalty as convenience. But now that those same traits are fueling his success, she finally sees what she overlooked. Naoto finally sees what she overlooked. And this is where the real emotional conflict begins. Not between her and him, but between who she was and who she's becoming. Regret, in its deepest form, isn't about losing someone. It's about facing the parts of ourselves we ignored while we had them. It's about realizing that our indifference came from immaturity, that our need to control came from insecurity, and that our pride disguised itself as strength when, in truth, it was fear. Fear of vulnerability, fear of admitting, I didn't know how to love him right. There's a poetic irony in all of this. When he was emotionally available, she found it easy to pull away. When he became emotionally unavailable, she found herself drawn back. That's how emotional polarity works. We're often attracted to the energy we can no longer influence. It's not that she suddenly fell back in love. It's that she realized how rare his kind of love was. Because in a world where most people love for convenience, he loved with commitment. And that's something she can't easily forget. But by the time she's ready to reach out, time has already rewritten the script. He's healed, he's grown, and most importantly, he's detached. He doesn't hate her, he's simply indifferent. And that indifference is more painful than anger because anger still carries emotion, but indifference carries closure. She sends a message she never gets a reply to, or perhaps she stops herself before even typing it. Either way, the silence speaks volumes. He's no longer accessible in the way she remembers, and she's forced to live with the reality that her chance has passed. In that moment, pride turns to humility. She begins to see that strength isn't about never admitting fault. It's about having the courage to face your own emotional truth. The more she reflects, the clearer it becomes. He didn't walk away because he stopped caring. He walked away because she stopped appreciating. He gave until there was nothing left to give. And when he finally chose himself, she mistook it for coldness. But now she understands that was self-respect. That was growth. And if she's honest with herself, she respects him even more for it, because deep down, she knows he didn't leave to punish her. He left to protect his peace. That's when she begins her own transformation. The regret that once felt unbearable becomes her teacher. She learns to value effort, to communicate appreciation, to never let pride silence sincerity. And though she may never get the chance to make things right with him, she carries the lesson into every relationship that follows. Maybe that's the hidden gift of regret. It humbles us. It shows us the cost of neglect, the weight of ego, and the importance of gratitude. It reminds us that love is not a game of dominance, but a practice of presence. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say, I was wrong. Because once pride leaves, healing begins. So if there's one truth she learns in the end, it's this. The same silence she once ignored becomes the silence that teaches her everything she needed to know. And by the time she's ready to love differently, he's already become the man who no longer needs her to feel complete. In the end, pride may save your image, but humility saves your heart.